The other thing that was mentioned in the chat, and I think this is huge before we go to David, is just that someone put in the comment, take time to laugh. I think it was Cindy put it in there, take time to laugh. And it's not just about take time to laugh, it's about make time to laugh, which means go watch a funny movie, spend time with your family laughing. It doesn't mean you make light of a situation where someone's sick or something like that, but just finding an opportunity to have a sense of humor and kind of relax a little bit. So with that, we're going to move on to David. He's one of our sociology faculty. And David, with that, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thanks. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for inviting me. I'm both sociology and psychology faculty. And so I'm going to share with you, I'm also used to be a therapist in private practice. So all of that stuff informs what I'm going to share with you. So let's go to the first slide. To survive these difficult times or to stay healthy in these difficult times, it's important to find a new meaning. A little over a month ago, we all knew who we were. We knew what we needed to do, and we knew how to do it, and we had plans for getting things done. Our lives had relative structure and routine, and now that's all been disrupted both collectively and individually. So we're all left collectively and individually feeling uncertain, nervous, and scared. And so to survive this physically, emotionally, and socially means we have to forge new identities for ourselves in the midst of all of this and ask ourselves, who am I under these never before imagined circumstances? All the preparedness in the world did not prepare us for something like this. So in asking ourselves, who do I want to be under these circumstances? Like what kind of husband or father, wife or mother, what kind of partner, what kind of colleague, what kind of instructor do I want to be in the midst of all this? And then celebrating and patting yourself on the back in those moments when you feel like that's it, that's who I wanted to be in this moment. And then also, I mean, the ultimate goal is that you get to the end of the day and your head hits the pillow and you feel like that's who I wanted to be today. Under these circumstances, that's the version of me. For me, that's the David I wanted to be. And when you figure out who that is, in part, whether it's as a faculty member or as a partner, and when you figure out who that is, you pursue that self, and you pursue that self enthusiastically and relentlessly. Go to the next slide. Making meaning out of what we're going through. There's a lot of things that I do now that I used to do, but I didn't really think much about. Things like washing my hands for 20 seconds frequently throughout the day, staying home, preparing online content to the level I've never done before, returning emails quicker than I've ever done before, getting up in the morning, making my bed, fixing breakfast, cleaning up breakfast, and then talking to and texting family and friends and colleagues. All of these things have new meaning under these circumstances. And then as a faculty member, as an instructor, I think about so much of what we do as educators and those who are in support of student education, that role, those roles have born-in meaning. We're fortunate to work in a field that means something. And now we're doing all of that under extraordinary circumstances, and that means something, that means a lot. And I think about the students, and I think in these remarkably uncertain times, we at BC can be a version of consistency for our students, and that means something to them. I find myself leaning a lot on mindfulness more now than I have in the past, more now in the last 2 weeks than I have in some time. And for me, the mindfulness piece, giving what I'm doing meaning, means focusing on the thing that's right in front of me in the moment and making everything that I do matter to me. So a key to making meaning is realizing that what you do matters to you and to your own personal health, but then also it matters to the health of your family and your friends and your community. So make everything that you do matter to you. Next slide. Now about maintaining connections, starting with the ones that you're with. We have to love, value, and appreciate the ones we're with. So focusing on being kind and patient and mindful to these people. These are your people. I've been talking to colleagues and friends and family, and some of the things that they've shared that they're doing to connect with their the people that they're quarantined with is going for more walks, socially isolated walks, but going for more walks. Some are getting to homeschool their kids. Some are doing yoga with their kids. Vegging out, watching Star Trek. That's the psych department, bunch of nerds. Negotiating the division of labor in a house where nobody leaves. That's something else we're getting to do. Cooking and eating all of our meals together, getting to do that too. So there is the potential to feel overwhelmed under these new circumstances because there's so much that we're getting to do that we haven't done before. Every one of us and everyone that we know is doing something completely foreign to all of us. I think about my stats students. And my stats students, whenever they learn a new statistical test, their typical response is, I'm confused. And I'll tell them whenever they say they're confused, well, that's because you're about to learn something new. And you've never done this before. It's expected that you'll be confused. None of us have done this before. And so we all need to cut ourselves and one another a break. And there's a real opportunity here in the midst of all this to show yourself how amazing you are. And then also to appreciate how incredible the people you've chosen to spend your life with are as well. Now, with regard to staying connected to the rest, I can't imagine this happening at any other time, how we as a society, as a culture would have coped. Because social media has allowed us to stay connected to family and friends and colleagues and to have informative meetings like this where we can all communicate with each other. I've never interacted so much with my colleagues as I have in the past 2 weeks. They're a tremendous source of support and guidance, and most importantly, humor. And I would say that if your group doesn't have a Don Turney in it, you ought to get a Don Turney in your group. And if you can't find a Don Turney, you ought to just take ours. That's fine. He's a hilarious source of pop culture references, constantly, circa 1986, but still constant source of pop culture references. Now, these last two things on maintaining connection, cultivate empathy. As a therapist, I used to tell myself when I was sitting across from patients, and I used to tell my patients, 3 things that could help them to cultivate empathy. First, no one asked to be born. We're all here involuntarily. And then next, we're all in this together. And then finally, I would tell myself and my patients, everyone's doing the best that they can. And even when you disagree with somebody, you can remind yourself that they have different information than you and that they've lived an entirely different life than you have. Now, this empathy is not meant for their benefit. This empathy is for your benefit. So you don't waste emotional energy on something that you don't have any control over. Empathy is really something that feeds your own soul. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was space and boundaries, and others have talked about this as well. But having your own corner of the house or your apartment or a place in the backyard that's just yours. And whether you need to go there for 5 minutes or a couple hours, you give yourself permission to do that. This is uncharted territory for us in terms of how much we're getting to spend with the people around us. Besides finding your own space, also giving yourself a cutoff time. If you wanted to, you could respond to student emails and contact 24 hours a day. You could be preparing lectures 24 hours a day. You need to tell yourself that at this time each day, that's when I'm done, and then just take the time for yourself. And then finally, once in a while, just turn everything off. Just turn everything off and breathe. Thanks. That's it.